The hunger for normalcy is, of course, growing. But what is the right way to find it in business and at school? And the virus carries no passport, but is it going back and forth across the U.S.-Canada border? Today is Sunday, April 26, 2020, and this is Flashpoint. Hi, welcome to Flashpoint. We have arrived at the last Sunday in April. I point it out only because your calendar might seem about as useful as a bag of hair right now. We continue to slog our way through the coronavirus odyssey. And we learned this week that the cheese is being moved. We were hoping that that May 1st date coming up on Friday might be enough to end the stay-at-home order, but the governor is moving at a different pace than her colleagues in a few other states who seem to be eager to be the first to test the post-virus economy. But there are quite a few people pumping the brakes who see a much longer-term reality, and one of them is the Wayne State President, Imroy Wilson. He said this week he doesn't see how students can return in person to classrooms this fall. Now, his opinion carries some heft. He happens to be a former researcher at the National Institutes of Health. He's going to join us this morning to talk about what he sees in the near and not so near-term future. We're also going to get to a few business voices to talk about this delicate balance of these new steps that need to be taken in restoring confidence and restarting the engine without throwing us back into reverse. And also this morning, we're going to head to Canada. The theory is that the cases of the virus that exist in southern Ontario have at least something to do with the cases in southeast Michigan, but we are so very connected and reliant as neighbors. Are we coordinating as we should be? It's all this morning on Flashpoint. All right, we're going to start this morning with the president of Wayne State University, Dr. Imroy Wilson. Yes, he has his hands full thinking about how to move forward with higher learning, but he's also on the governor's task force looking into the glaring disparities of the way the virus is hitting the African-American community, and that is down his alley because before coming to Wayne State, he was the deputy director at the National Institute on Minority Health and Health Disparities for the NIH. And Dr. Wilson joins us today. Doctor, really good to see you. I appreciate your time today. Let me start with what's happening at Wayne State. Everybody's trying to figure out these measured ways of moving forward and getting back to something that we recognize as normal. What are you seeing that led you to say this past week that you can't really see students going back into classrooms in the fall?
Well, I certainly hope I'm wrong, and we certainly want to welcome students back in the classroom this fall. I'm also an epidemiologist. I don't know if you know that or not.
Yes.
So I've had a lot of experience with these kind of outbreaks and infections. And I just think if I were a betting man, I would say that the chances are greater that than not that we would still be predominantly online, maybe not exclusively online. It's probably going to be a balance. It's not going to be like it is right now, that's for sure. So there will be some face-to-face contact, but the question is whether it will be predominantly online or predominantly face-to-face. And we're hoping that it will be predominantly face-to-face, and we have a lot of committees looking at this and making all kinds of contingency plans, but the chances are that it will be predominantly online, and we're just want to be prepared if that's the case. And
what is your sense of the quality of that kind of education versus one in person that is much more interactive and in person?
Yeah, so when we had to pivot in the middle of the semester, we talk about it being online, but and other universities talk about switching to online, but it really wasn't switching to online. It was switching to a remote education. Online education is a lot more involved. And we had some online classes at the time that we made that pivot, but it's very different from a true online versus just doing a regular class, but doing it remotely. And so I think there's no question that there is something to be gained from interaction with your classmates and with the professor. Harder to do with just remote as was done in the middle of the semester.
We're seeing some students who are wanting their money back for the last semester, and I'm curious, should this sort of online virtual education we're talking about, should it cost the same when it comes to tuition?
Well, it's still the same expertise of the professors. In many ways, online is actually harder to do, requires a lot more skill. And what I was getting ready to say earlier is that true online, you're able to offer the kind of interactions that you don't do on just a remote education. So a true online experience takes a lot of work, takes a lot of skill, and it's not something that you just put together, in a few hours.
But you work awfully hard at creating a campus experience. All universities do. I mean, that's a big part of it, isn't it?
Of course. And so that's why if we have the choice, we're going to lean toward trying to open up the campus. On the other hand, we're not going to do anything that's going to jeopardize the safety of our students. We're in Detroit. Detroit is one of the epicenters of this virus outbreak, both in terms of the infection and in terms of the death rate.
Yeah.
If you go to some other counties, they're having a very different experience that we're having in Detroit, and so you really can't take chances on people's safety and people's lives. So you have to be darn sure.
Yeah, well, let's talk about that because you, as I mentioned, you're on the governor's task force, and we've watched this hit the African-American community so disproportionately hard. What are you coming to understand about that part of this outbreak so far?
Well, let me just say that I'm very impressed so far with the work of the task force. I think that it's not just the task force where we get together and we just talk about things and just spend a couple of hours pontificating. I mean, there's really some real actionable items that are being implemented. One of these is just communication. A lot more communication going out to the African American community in a lot of different mediums, with a lot of different both personalities that people will recognize, as well as just professionally done, culturally sensitive pieces that are relevant to the African American community. So that's one thing that's being done. And another thing that's being explored is being able to do more testing in the areas where vulnerable populations live. And I think that's going to be very important.
Well, it's interesting because I think we certainly would see that people who don't have access to better health care are more likely to have the kind of conditions that can lead to real complications here. But we also know that there are, for example, sickle cell anemia affects disproportionately African American or black people. White people more likely to be affected by things like cystic fibrosis. Is there a possibility that there's something happening in a genetic vulnerability here rather than one that's just explained by poverty?
There is no evidence of that. Certainly what you're talking about is, does it exist in terms of different what's called genetic polymorphisms. And it really goes back to where your geography of origin was, and these genes get secluded and sequestered in a certain way. So certain kind of mutations get more populated in certain populations. But there's no evidence of that here. Yeah. And it's not just access to healthcare, by the way. So really what it looks like here is it's the social determinants of health that is really impacting the differential, both infection rate and the death rate. And by social determinants of health, I'm talking about, the factors that determine where you live, where you work, where you play, where you pray. Where you live has a huge impact on health because it determines whether or not you have access to fresh foods, where you have access to exercise, safety. There are a lot of factors that go into that. And just as an example of the impact of where you live, certainly if you live in Grosse Pointe, you have one set of you can expect to live a certain age, and if you just live just within just a few miles different, you can have a huge difference in the death expectation. You can shave 13 years off your mark by living in the 48236 zip code of Grosse Pointe to the 48201 zip code of Detroit. And we're just talking about a few short miles.
Such a dramatic difference that you're talking about. Doctor, it's so good to talk to you. I so appreciate the update, and we will talk to you again as we move forward with this. Stay safe.
Great. Thank you. It's been a pleasure.
Back with more in just a minute on Flashpoint.